Well, these days there's no shortage of things to analyze in the news, and to do some of that this morning, we're going to welcome New York Times columnist Charles Blow to the broadcast. He's joined by Washington Post columnist David Ignatius, Jeanne Cummings, senior editor of Bloomberg Politics, and Gerald Seib, the Wall Street Journal Washington bureau chief. And I want to start with this business of race. Jeanne, Bloomberg has a new poll coming out that I must say I find astonishing. When asked if race relations have gotten better or worse under Barack Obama, the first black president, 53% of those polls said they have gotten worse. And when you break it down further, 56% of whites said relations have gotten worse, as did 45% of blacks. Are we going backwards here when it comes to race relations?
Well, I think it depends on which community you're in. And for the black community, I'm not sure that they saw a whole lot of improvement. They were hoping, they were very hopeful for improvement. I think that when we look at our prior polls, the white community's number has moved substantially to say that things have deteriorated in recent times. But in general, there's not a huge difference between the two. Both communities now believe that things have deteriorated. And that division is evident also when we polled where the public is on the non-verdicts in Ferguson and New York. In Ferguson, a slight majority, 52%, agree with that decision, and that's driven by a majority of whites. In New York, it is both communities view it as unacceptable. That decision is unacceptable. In both cases, about 90% of the black community, they reject both of the decisions by the grand juries not to indict. This could be evidence that that camera is important, because in New York, people could see what happened. And in Ferguson, there's debate about what happened.
Well, Charles, I want to get back to this first finding here, that race relations are worse under a black president than they were under a white president. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean,
at least they're saying that's what people are saying.
Right. So, but you have to ask yourself: is it a causal relationship? Right? Is it because of him? Is something that he has done, or is it a reaction to him actually being the president, which is not really about him but about us, right? And I think that is the bigger question. That is a bigger philosophical question as to how do we respond to people who do not look like us? Do we believe that they have our interest at heart? Do we believe that we can identify and empathize with that person? And if we cannot, then we kind of exacerbate something that may already exist in terms of bias, in terms of how we see race relations in this country. And I think that's a real question that we have to ask ourselves about who we are and whether or not things were in fact better before this president, and just we're kind of underneath the kind of under the surface.
David, what do you, and I don't mean to suggest that it's Barack Obama's fault,
right,
but I mean, I found that stunning that this would be the finding, that a lot of people say that things are worse now than they were.
Sociologists sometimes talk about a revolution of rising expectations, where because of changes, the election of the first African-American president, having Eric Holder, an African-American, as our Attorney General, people expect things are changing. And then when they see evidence in these cases where young unarmed black men are being shot and they're not, the people who shoot them are not being indicted, there's a special anger because people thought things were getting better. They thought with this African-American president it would be different 6 years on. And I think that's part of what's behind it, is a sense of disappointment. You know, America has had race issues. This is our original sin, and it's a continuum in our national story. But I wonder if the explosion of anger now doesn't have something to do with people saying it should have been better because of the changes we thought the country had made in electing Barack Obama.
And it's not.
And it's not. Here's this problem that, I mean, how many years have we heard about driving while black as an experience that African Americans have? I mean, white people hear this, but do we really react? Do we really take it in and then say, okay, if that's true, if so many people say that, what do you do different about it?